Imperialism in Ireland by me. The Lordship of Ireland. In 1169, the Normans, who were a French group in the north of France, invaded Ireland as they had taken England about a century before. The eastern coast of Ireland was controlled by England until the 1920s and became known as the Pale. This part of Ireland had been under English colonialism for so long they developed two variants of English, Yola, and Fingalian, which are currently undergoing restoration efforts. The amount of land in Ireland controlled by the English grew and diminished over time, but the origins of modern English colonialism starts with Henry VIII and his invasion of Ireland. The Kingdom of Ireland. Henry VIII had previously conquered Ireland, but it wasn't until the English Civil War that Ireland had fully become part of England. Henry VIII made Ireland a new kingdom called the Kingdom of Ireland, and the English monarch was to be governing over this area. Previously, the Lordship of Ireland was a papal fief, land granted by the Pope to a monarch, but later, after the Protestant Reformation, it became necessary for the King, an Anglican, to make sure that Ireland would be under England's control. So, Ireland was now a puppet regime of England. James VI, also known as James I, had been King of Scotland, England, and Ireland, and brought the countries in union with each other. Ireland had become a kingdom under James VI and had a Protestant aristocracy ruling a Catholic peasantry. During this time, many regions, especially in the north, were rebellious, and so he instituted what would be known as the Ulster Plantation and sent Scottish and English settlers all over Ireland. Now, the Ulster Plantation was land up north here in Ulster, where Scottish and English colonists were sent to reduce the rebellious nature of the area. This led to Ulster having a Protestant majority, as English Anglicans and Scottish Presbyterian settlers made their homes and towns in Ulster. Protestants would also settle in other places in major cities like Dublin, but Belfast became the major center of Protestantism in Ireland. The Ulster Plantation is important later, so remember to keep that in mind. The English Civil War. England in the 1640s had a civil war between various factions, and it came down between the Catholic monarchy and Irish Catholics versus the Scottish Presbyterians and English Protestants. During this time, Cromwell invaded Ireland, killed thousands of civilians, executed thousands, displaced thousands, many of whom fled to England, and you can still find Irish diaspora in places like Liverpool to this day, and killed hundreds of thousands of people. Estimates vary, but about 10 to 40% of the people in Ireland died. Cromwell's invasion left many in Ireland dead, and this left a lot of land for the taking, which would be given to English and Scottish settlers. Repression. During the English Civil War and the periods that followed, there were many Irish rebellions, and thousands of people died, and this would continue on and off for a while. The English established many anti-Catholic laws, such as Catholic churches being unable to be made of stone and Catholics being unable to own land. This all started to be abolished around the year 1800 due to a major revolt that caused a new union, the United Irishmen. A society known as the United Irishmen launched a revolt in 1798 against the British. This started the process of Catholic emancipation and led to the downfall of the Protestant aristocracy, as the English government was aware that the oppression the aristocracy was using was not working. So, about a century before the revolt in 1707, England and Scotland had united as the United Kingdom of Great Britain. In 1801, after this revolt, to disown the incompetent Protestant aristocracy, Ireland became the new United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Excuse the typo. The United Kingdom. From this point onward, the Irish relied on potatoes, as most of the grain from Ireland was sent to the British mainland. In 1801, the Articles of Union were signed that made the United Kingdom of Great Britain, United Kingdom of Great Britain, Ireland, and there were several occasional revolts that occurred during this time. Due to the increased exploitation, the Irish reliance on the potato grew and grew, and by 1845 the Irish population had skyrocketed due to 8.1 million, as potatoes were a very calorie-dense crop. This, of course, resulted in the Great Famine. In 1846, potato blight from America reached Europe, and although a lot of countries experienced famines, for example, Belgium lost about 20% of their crop and had a bunch of people die, Ireland's was the most severe. Ireland had a pre-famine population of 8.1 million, but it would go down to 6.5 million by 1850. The famine lasted from 1846 to 1852 and saw the deaths of 1 million Irish and the emigration of around 2 million, mostly for America. The famine permanently crippled Ireland as people continued to leave until the 1960s, when the population started to grow again. An eyewitness account of the Irish potato famine says, "I saw the dying, the living, and the dead lying indiscriminately upon the same floor, without anything between them and the cold earth, save a few miserable rags upon them. To point to any particular house as proof of this would be a waste of time, as all were in the same state, and not a single house out of 500 could boast of being free from death and fever, though several could be pointed out with the dead lying close to the living, for the space of 3, 4, or even 6 days, without any effort being made to remove the bodies to a last resting place. After leaving this abode of death, we proceeded to High Street, or Old Chapel Lane, and there we found one house, without door or window, filled with destitute people lying on the bare floor, and one fine tall stout country lad, who had entered some hours previously to find shelter from the piercing cold, lay here dead amongst others likely soon to follow him." The turning point. I'd argue that the turning point in the colonization of Ireland is the Irish potato famine. The Irish potato famine crippled Ireland for about 120 years and led to Ireland being as we know it today. The famine became a rallying point against English mismanagement and neglect of Irish people, and this famine led to calls for independence, the start of militias, and resulted in the Irish diaspora community of around 80 million people worldwide. The Irish potato famine has made Ireland, it's defined it, and to this day has defined it. It will continue to do so, and this one event led to the modern day Ireland. The economic effects of losing 1 million people to starvation, 2 million to immigration, and over the course of the next 100 years losing another 10 million due to emigration, has caused Ireland to not recover its pre-famine population levels. Without this famine, Ireland would still be densely populated, and relations with the British would probably be better, as the British Parliament would not have let 1 million people die of hunger. This pivot shows how the Irish potato famine defines Ireland to this day, and it's often talked about in relation to Ireland. This is why I believe the Irish potato famine is the turning point in Ireland's history. The Easter Rising. Due to gross mismanagement and negligence by the British, many have gone as far to call it genocide, Irish nationalism started to increase. Irish groups started to organize, and by 1914, Ireland was primed for a revolt. In 1916, a faction of Irish parliamentary groups launched a rebellion, the Easter Rising, in Ireland against the British, advocating for independence. The Easter Rising was put down, but it did signal the idea of Irish independence, or at least autonomy. The Irish War of Independence. The Catholics formed the IVF, the Irish Volunteer Force, and the ICA, Irish Citizens Army, to advocate for Irish Home Rule, which means that Ireland would get autonomy, or a bit of freedom, from the British Empire. The Protestants, mostly in Ulster, formed the UVF, Ulster Volunteer Force, to resist Home Rule, as they wished to stay under the Crown. The Free Staters won, although Northern Ireland, Ulster, remained in the British Empire, rather than the Irish Free State, a British Dominion. The Irish Civil War. In the Irish Free State, there were two camps of people, those that supported Home Rule, keeping the Dominion, and those that supported independence. Led by Michael Collins, the Home Rulers won, and Ireland remained a Dominion until 1937. In 1937, the Free State government held a referendum, and it passed. Ireland is now a republic, and British colonialism largely ends in Ireland, although the issue of Northern Ireland continues to this day. World War II. The Irish remained neutral, although they did secretly supply the Allies. Some Irish people signed up to fight the Germans by volunteering to join the British. There were even Irish people at D-Day. Ireland was neutral to assert their independence and show that they were a different country from the UK. Ireland gained some economic boost from supplying the Allies during the war, which continues to this day as they assisted their economy and helped them to become a wealthy nation as they are today. Ireland, after the war, joined the UN and has been involved in worldwide and European politics. Ireland also had to deal with communist forces, which are common in Ireland in forms like the PIRA, or Provisional Irish Republican Army. The Troubles. During the 1960s to 1990s, nationalist Catholic and loyalist Protestant paramilitary/terrorist groups fought a gang war/insurrection in Northern Ireland. Car and building bombings were common in England, Ireland, and in Northern Ireland especially, although they did occur across the rest of Europe. The conflict ended with the Good Friday Agreement, which stopped most of the violence, although today it continues still on a lower level. There are still many divisions within Northern Ireland, and it will be a long while before this conflict is truly resolved. Globalization. During the period of globalization, Ireland's population finally started to recover as the economy made good progress. Ireland's population is increasing, although it is still less than the pre-famine levels. Ireland is a wealthy, high-income country with a lot of culture and history. Chemicals, machinery, and food make up the majority of Irish exports, while their imports were mostly machinery and chemicals. Ireland is an EU member, and as it appears for now, will continue to be a shining beacon in Europe. Ireland has had debates over whether or not to join NATO, has served a similar role to Sweden or Switzerland, and often supports Palestine in the Arab-Israeli conflict. Environmental changes in Ireland. Ireland is getting warmer and hotter due to climate change and its effects on the planet. Rain has increased by 6%, and sea levels have increased by 2 to 3 millimeters a year for 30 years. Air temperature in Ireland has increased by a degree Celsius, or about 1.6 degrees Fahrenheit, in the last 120 years. Carbon dioxide is up 50%, methane is up 170%, and nitrous oxide has increased by 20% to pre-industrial levels. Greenhouse gases are also continuing to rise, with big increases compared to pre-industrial levels. Conclusion. Ireland is a nation with a long and interesting history that, entangled with imperialism and colonization, is fascinating and continues to be written. Ireland has been a beacon of learning in Europe and is one of the best and nicest countries in the EU and serves an important role in Europe. Ireland today is a great place to visit, has millions in diaspora, and has resisted the yoke of British colonialism and serves as an inspiration to other nations to this day. And here are my sources. So, thank you for watching.